The Indian and Pakistani armies are holding a brigade-level flag meeting at Chakan-Da-Bagh in Poonch today. They will discuss recent incidents along the Edo Sea over the past 20 days and focus on upholding the 2020 Ceasefire Agreement. India and the United Kingdom are set to relaunch negotiations on a free trade agreement. UK Minister for Trade Douglas Alexander will in fact visit India next week to hold talks with Union Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal. Now, the discussions aim to revive stalled trade talks between the two nations, focusing on key sectors like technology, pharmaceuticals and financial services. Both sides are expected to address issues related to market access, tariffs and investment regulations. A successful deal, in fact, could significantly boost bilateral trade and strengthen economic ties between the two countries. Israeli police reported a series of explosions on buses in central Israel on Thursday in what they said appeared to be a militant attack. No injuries, however, have been reported. Police rushed forces to the scene in Bat Yam, a city, in fact, near Tel Aviv, as they searched for suspects. The cops also said bomb disposal units were searching for additional bombs. Analysts, meanwhile, argue that elements within the Israeli government are quote-unquote itching to return to war in an effort to eliminate Hamas, even though their goal is not really attainable. And one of the 4 bodies returned by Hamas to Israel on Thursday is allegedly not that of Shiri Bibas, Israel's military has said, calling it a blatant violation of utmost severity of a ceasefire deal that was already precarious. The Israeli military confirmed that the 2 bodies belonged to Bibas's children, Ariel and Kafir, in the early hours of Friday. However, it added during the identification process, it was determined that the additional body received is not that of Shiri Bibas and no match was found for any other hostage. This is an anonymous, unidentified body, the IDF said. Over in Washington, the U.S. Senate has confirmed Kash Patel as the next FBI director, handing oversight of the nation's premier law enforcement agency to an official who has declined to explicitly say whether he would use his position to pursue Donald Trump's political opponents. Now, notably, at his confirmation hearing, Patel refused to commit, in fact, that he would not use his position to investigate officials he portrayed as Trump's adversaries in his book, and affirmed that he believed that the FBI, on the other hand, was answerable to the Justice Department and ultimately the White House. However, Patel will inherit an FBI gripped by turmoil, as the Justice Department over the past month itself has forced out a group of senior bureau officials and even made a highly unusual demand for the names of thousands of agents who participated in investigations related to the Jan 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol riots. Meanwhile, when Trump tapped Kash Patel last year, Democrats largely believed it would lead to a backlash that would sink his nomination, but no resistance ever materialized. In part because Patel was less controversial than some other of Trump's nominees, such as Pete Hegseth and for Defense Secretary, in fact. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has met South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and conveyed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's warm greetings. Now, Jaishankar, who is in Johannesburg on a 2-day visit to participate in the G20 foreign ministers meeting, assured India's support for South Africa's G20 priorities. Not only this, on the sidelines of the foreign ministers meeting, Jaishankar also interacted with several world leaders, including Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan. Dr. Jaishankar also met Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and discussed the progress of the India-Russia bilateral cooperation, in fact. The 2 ministers also discussed the Ukraine war and Lavrov's visit to Riyadh, where he held talks with the U.S. delegation sent by President Donald Trump. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that a meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart, in fact, Vladimir Putin, hinges on the progress towards ending the war in Ukraine. Now, Rubio emphasized that such high-level meetings only happen when there's clarity on potential outcomes. He added that if a Trump-Putin meet eventually seals a peace deal, it would highlight Trump's role, in fact, as a global peacemaker. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke to a meeting of the Republican Governors Association in Washington. Trump spoke about education and said that the states will bear running their own schools. Listen in.
We're going to make universal school choice a very big, strong thing, school choice. And we're working very, very hard to send these schools and education back to the states where they can be properly run. In other words, this really affects the people in this room, but you're going to be running your schools, and who can do worse? Look, they rate them in the top 40. So we just came out with one that we were number 40, but we were number 1 in cost per pupil. And I mean, I know a lot of the governors in this room. You run a great state, and you'll do great with education at a much lower price. We're going to give you whatever you need, but at a much lower price. We have people in Washington, D.C. that, in all fairness, in many cases, don't give a damn about your pupils or your students or your states. And they're running everything, and they're running it into the ground. So it came out, we're last in education, but first in cost per pupil.
Meanwhile, tensions ran high at the Four Nations Face-Off Championship game between the US and Canada. This as political friction spilled on, in fact, to the ice. American fans lightly booed Canada's national anthem, O Canada, before roaring through the star-spangled banner at the Boston's sold-out TD Garden. The crowd's reaction follows US President Donald Trump's repeated jabs at Canada, including recent remarks joking about making it the 51st US state over and over again. Adding fuel to fire, the anthem singer altered a lyric in O Canada, in fact, during the performance, an apparent response to Trump's comments. The game, already a major hockey showdown, became a symbol of growing cross-border tensions as well. US President Donald Trump has once again stirred controversy by joking about turning Canada into the 51st US state. Speaking after Canadian fans booed the US national anthem at a hockey game in Montreal, Trump suggested Canada relies heavily on the US products and would in fact need to pay tariffs on key exports like automobiles, lumber, and even oil. In a light-hearted remark, Trump said he'd keep Canada's national anthem, though, O Canada, calling it beautiful. Listen in.
I think Canada, they're going to have to pay tariffs on automobiles, lumber, and oil and gas, et cetera, and they get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state. And you heard the people booing the national anthem, but I think ultimately they'll be praising the national anthem. We'll have to work out some deal with it, because I do like the O Canada, right? It's a beautiful thing. I think we're going to have to keep it for the 51st state. I call him Governor Trudeau. I said, Governor Trudeau's doing a wonderful job. I think it's actually cost him his election, if you want to know the truth. But we're gonna see about that. We're looking at Greenland, and we have to take back the Panama Canal, because that wasn't the deal. We gave the Panama Canal to Panama.
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky met US President Trump's special envoy in Kiev on Thursday, one day after a public feud between the Ukrainian and American leaders, in fact, threatened to derail diplomatic efforts towards peace talks as the war almost is approaching 3 years. Now, the meeting with Keith Kellogg, the special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, was meant to discuss paths to, in fact, ending the war that would safeguard Kiev's interests. There was also hope that it might help diffuse tensions between Washington and Kiev after Trump labeled Zelensky a dictator, and the Ukrainian president accused Trump of echoing Russian propaganda. Whether any progress was made still remains unclear. A news conference, however, that was scheduled for after the meeting was cancelled at the request of the United States. Now, this is according to Zelensky's office, although Kellogg and the Ukrainian leader appeared together for photos. On the other side of the border, Russia's defense ministry stated in its Thursday report that its country's forces struck energy facilities supporting the Ukrainian military-industrial complex, as well as ammunition depots, electronic warfare stations, and other targets inside Ukraine. Meanwhile, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on the same day, that's Thursday, that dozens of battles took place on the front lines throughout the day. Ukrainian forces successfully thwarted and disrupted Russian offensive plans, repelling multiple Russian attacks in areas such as Kharkiv, Lyman, and Russia's Kursk region as well. Argentine President Javier Milei met with US President Donald Trump's DOGE advisor Elon Musk in Washington on Thursday. And Milei, in fact, gave Musk a chainsaw that symbolizes the Argentine president's budget cuts to the federal government. Now, the chainsaw has the name Elon Musk engraved on it, and the phrase in Spanish goes rather something like, "Long live freedom, damn it." The meeting with Musk took place within the framework of a new visit that the Argentine president makes to the capital of the United States through Saturday, in fact. Milei will also meet with the managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, the president of the World Bank, Ajay Banga, and participate in the Conservative Action Conference, where President Donald Trump, in fact, will also be a participant.